There are times when you can look at a show and know you'll love it. For me, this is a show like Mahou Shoujo Ore, a magical girl show where the girls turn into big, buff guys. However, there are also times when you can look at a show and know you'll hate it. For me, this was a show like Kiss X Sis. I think the name speaks for itself. There are two other options to this as well. Getting overhyped for a show, be it from other fans or the advertising itself, and being disappointed or being underhyped for a show, and end up thoroughly enjoying it even if it seems to be fairly generic. Most of my favorite anime are shows that I watched when I was excited about them, and many of them would most likely not be considered amazing shows, especially if my anime list is any indicator. Thankfully, I was able to experience this feeling again recently with Isekai Maou to Shoukan Shoujo no Dorei Majutsu, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord in English. The show itself is fairly basic, especially for a title from the isekai genre. The main character, Diablo, is extremely good at an MMORPG called Cross Reverie, and is sent to a world similar to it, becoming his in-game character. He is extremely overpowered, able to beat most of his enemies with ease, calling himself Demon Lord Diablo. His one major flaw is that he has no social skills, and is only able to talk with people in his chosen Demon Lord persona. This character trait was interesting to say the least. In most isekai, the protagonist is set up as someone who the viewer can project themselves onto and give them a power fantasy. However, giving Diablo a flaw gives him more of a personality than simply, "I can't be beat, ha ha ha." It also allows for some great comedy when he doesn't know what to do with himself in situations where a Demon Lord persona doesn't quite fit. The most important part of this flaw is the believability it gives to Diablo. It helps me to resonate with him more and believe his actions and motives throughout the entire series, even if other characters don't necessarily react to his quirks. This nice guy in a bad boy shell is one of the ways he's able to grow his harem throughout the show. Diablo is summoned to this world by two girls, Rim Galliou and Shara L. Greenwood. Together, these two summoned him into their world, however, the magic used on him to make him their slave is reflected by an item he has, making them his slaves. As a human from Earth, Diablo doesn't really want to own them as slaves and tries to find a way to remove the collars from around their necks. This becomes Diablo's goal for the series. What shocked me the most about this goal was just how prevalent it was throughout the 12 episodes. Not only does he actively look for someone who can help him, he finds them. A slave trader, sure, but who better to know how to remove a slave collar than those who put them on? He also enslaves another girl, who is an actual demon lord being shunned by those in the city, in order to protect her and allow her to live with them. This scene was really interesting because the girl was very apprehensive about giving up her free will, as anyone would be. However, both Rim and Shara explained to her that Diablo respects them, and becoming his slave is basically a loophole. Throughout the 12 episodes, there's only one instance of Diablo ever making them do something against their will. The other instance doesn't quite fit, and I'll explain that later. This one instance was when he was first summoned and told them to shake hands and smile, forcing them to make up during a fight. This could be seen as using force to get what he wanted, sure, but I saw it as Diablo learning just how powerful the magic was, and the show efficiently explaining how he didn't want to force them to do anything against their will ever again. This mentality can be seen more prevalently in what I like to call the Shara kidnapping arc. It becomes known fairly early on that Shara is an elven princess. About midway through the show, Shira's brother Kira comes to take her back to the royal city. Kira and Diablo agree that whichever Shira chooses, going with her brother or staying with Diablo, they would respect her decision. By the title of the arc, you can assume her decision is not respected, and you'd be right. Kira manipulates Shira with a flute, controlling her to do whatever he wanted her to do. Even though Shira was acting oddly, Diablo let her go because he promised to respect her decision. This is another great moment of characterization for Diablo because it again shows he respects the girls and is not thinking only of himself. The only reason he rescued Shara was because Rim came begging him to save her and bring her back. During the rescue is the only other time in the 12 episodes Diablo uses the collars to make the girls do something against their will. In this case though, it was to give her back her will. Kira's flute was still manipulating Shara, and she was unable to say what she truly wanted about going back with Diablo.
シェラよ、我は霊獣の首輪の主として命じる。どんな魔術にも縛られぬ貴様の本当の心の内を吐露せよ。
I really liked the way this was phrased. Diablo didn't want to force Shira to do anything she didn't want to do. He commanded her to tell him what she truly wanted, instead of saying something which could have influenced her more to say she wanted to go back with him. It reinforces that Diablo truly does care about the girls' free will and doesn't think of them as slaves, even if they technically are. I didn't expect any of this when I started the show for the first time. I took this show to be a typical isekai harem featuring girls of many different proportions. I didn't expect any nuanced characterization or interesting storytelling. I expected a lot of fan service with a dash of power fantasy, and I did get this for sure. The OP alone contains more fan service than some entire shows, but there's a lot of attention to detail many other shows just don't have. I've seen quite a few isekai shows, and most of them were enjoyable, but really just alright. None of them stood out as an amazing show doing something new. Isekai wa Smartphone to Tomo ni, In Another World with My Smartphone, is a pretty good comparison to Isekai Maou. Toya is accidentally killed by God and is given a second chance in another world. He's able to bring one thing from his world to the new one and chooses his smartphone, and God adds all the functionality to it, even though he's as far as one could possibly be from a cell tower. Toya is quickly able to grow a harem, which is expected and, in most shows, mandatory, though it is quite a bit larger than Diablo's. By the end of the 12 episodes, he has 6 girls following him around, opposed to Diablo's 3. Plus 2, kind of. They're up in the air at the end of the show. These two shows are very similar to each other, but have some very fundamental differences. The most prominent one I would say is how each show treats their characters. Isekai Maou uses a smaller cast in order to develop the characters more and give them more depth, while Isekai Smartphone uses a larger cast to appeal to more people with different character archetypes. I would argue neither is bad because they're both focusing on different ways to tell a story. One more character driven, and one more focused on the world. I almost didn't watch Isekai Maou because most people treated it as a generic isekai. While this is true in most parts, I think it definitely has reason to exist and isn't simply a leech on the newest trend. However, if I'd only listened to the popular opinions and not one by someone who loves the isekai genre, I never would have known. If I hadn't started that first episode when I felt excited by the show, I probably wouldn't be praising it as much as I am now. I guess what I'm trying to say is to watch something when it first sounds interesting to you. I heard about this show for the first time in a positive light from a pause and select video, and was intrigued enough to watch it in a couple of days. I wish I'd done this with other shows because if my expectations weren't so high, Hunter x Hunter would probably be one of my favorite shows. Thank you for watching another video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Be sure to check out my podcast I do with my buddy Nick down in the description below, and follow me on Twitter. And if you liked the video, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to see more content like this. Again, thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.